So Windows Vista is turning 20 this year, and I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate than by avoiding it entirely and taking a look at a Linux distro instead. This right here is aLinux, a Vista lookalike distro that was last updated in 2013. So today we're going to check it out and see how it compares to everyone's favorite version of Windows. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So I've got a CD for aLinux right here that we're going to be installing on this XP system in a moment, but I wanted to give you a little backstory first because this is a little different from some of the other Windows lookalike distros that we've explored on this channel before. In fact, it didn't even start as a Windows Vista lookalike at all because this had been around since at least the early 2000s. Back then it was called Peanut Linux, great name by the way, and it positioned itself as a premium Linux-based OS that claimed to have better bundled applications than more popular distros like Red Hat and SUSE. It also boasted a tiny 85 megabyte download size, though they did also sell an install CD for $30. And it was meant to appeal to both seasoned Linux users and people who were still thinking about switching over. Visually, it looked pretty similar to other early 2000s Linux distros, and it made use of KDE as the desktop environment. In 2005, it was rebranded to aLinux, which I gotta say does sound a lot less cool, and eventually the user interface took on a more Frutiger Arrow theme, which lasted all the way until 2013 with the final release, 17.0b3, which is what we're going to be taking a look at today. Now, the system requirements for this thing are pretty minimal. It only needs a 266 MHz CPU, 256 megabytes of RAM, though they did recommend 512, and 5 gigabytes of hard drive space. We exceed all of those things on our XP system here. We have a Pentium 4 running at 2.8 gigahertz and 1.5 gigs of RAM. So let's go ahead and restart the system and get this show on the road. So here we are at the boot menu. You see we have a few different resolution options as well as a fail-safe. So we're just going to go with the default 1024 by 768. And this right here looks like the boot screen, which is just a static image. I must say though, the font down here on the bottom for the copyright info kind of reminds me of Windows XP a little bit. Maybe that's intentional. Oh, and I spoke too soon. We got a little animation there, but now it's gone. Alright, so here's the desktop. I've heard sound coming through as well. There's no sound effect when you change the volume, but it is working. And you can see we've got a whole lot going on here. First of all, this background literally looks like it was taken from Windows Vista. I don't believe it is. This does look a little bit different from the ones that I've seen, but it definitely has given me like a Windows Vista Ultimate vibe, which is probably intentional. You see we have some like Aero glass-ish transparency going on, and some very Windows Vista looking window controls up here. So yeah, there is a lot to explore. Also, not to mention the sidebar here, which is covering the icons. We are going to take a look at all of this once we install it. But yeah, so here is the K-Tip application, which looks like it's just giving you some tips for KDE. We'll close out of that for now. And can we move the sidebar, because I do need to find the install icon. I guess we can just access it from the apps menu too. Well, it looks like we can just minimize it, so yeah, we'll do that. Oh, we could have also just switched over to another desktop too, so yeah, multiple ways to get it out of the way here. We're just gonna open up the installer, and oh my gosh, look at this. That is some really tiny text there. aLinux is a KDE optimized, maybe? I can barely make that out. This text is like super tiny, and that just looks jumbled. But yeah, Linux distribution targeted at competent Linux users, in other words, not afraid of the command line. And then down here it says, if you don't understand what a partition is or are scared of editing configuration files, this is not for you. That's interesting, because that's completely different from what Peanut Linux said originally, so I guess that they kind of changed their target audience at some point. And speaking of audience, today's sponsor boot.dev is for every audience who wants to learn programming, regardless of how much experience you have, because they walk you through everything from start to finish. Their library of courses covers a variety of programming topics, including Python, Go, JavaScript, and SQL, and they even have one for Linux. So if you've ever been intimidated by that terminal application, this will help you feel more at ease. And what's great is they've got it set up so you start out using an embedded Linux command line interface right in your browser. That lets you get comfortable with running commands before doing it locally on your own system. And throughout all of this, you'll feel like you're playing a game, which is boot.dev's way of getting you actually interested in what you're learning and wanting to come back to complete the lessons. There's XP to earn, quests to complete, even a leaderboard to compete on. And what I love most about them is they back all of their courses with a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy. And on top of that, you can view everything on the site for absolutely free before you subscribe to a membership, which you can do by scanning this QR code or clicking the link below. And make sure to use code MichaelMJD at checkout to get 25% off your first payment. So it looks like now we're at the partitioning step. We have to run a partitioning tool, it looks like. I guess the installer does not do that for us, so we're going to get a critical error opening up the disk. That's not particularly good. Can we just wipe this whole thing, do a new partition table? It's probably because it just can't read this. Yeah, there we go. So we are going to go ahead and make the primary partition on here. And there's our SDA1 partition, so we're going to install it onto that, and we should be good to go. Alright, and that looks to have finished, so now it's asking us for our time zone. We'll just open up the map here, and we'll choose New York. And then username, I'm going to do just Michael for the full name, and our super secure password. Next up, it looks like, is the bootloader. So we have two options, Lilo and Grub. It says Grub is the easier one, so that's fine with me. I guess we just choose where we want to install and hit install bootloader. And I guess that finished. So we'll hit next. And here's where it asks us to modify the configuration files. I would imagine that we could just work with the default values. I mean, we can always boot back off of the live CD if we need to modify anything, but let's just leave them alone for now, hit next, and it says congratulations and welcome to aLinux. So we're going to hit finish, and we are going to restart. And here's the Grub bootloader. We've got the aLinux partition there. We're just going to press enter on that, and it looks like it's booting. Alright, here we are at the desktop, and I was able to get the sidebar fixed to where you can drag it around the screen. I just had to close out of it, open it back up, and then it like resized itself to where this top bar was actually at the top instead of off the screen, so you can drag it around and move it, you know, wherever you want. But yeah, I guess we can start here. This is, you know, kind of meant to mimic the Windows Vista gadgets. So we have some CPU and a processor monitor. We've got our network monitor here. And then this, I think, is telling us the free space, or this is free memory, and then this is the swap. And then down here, I'm guessing this is email, maybe? Yeah, mail. And then additional plugins are located in this tab. And you see we have a whole bunch, some that are not enabled, but we've got a sun clock, we have a weather program, we got a radio plugin, a volume plugin, and we can also disable some of these so you know it's not going way off the screen. And then you got some options for host name display, system name display. You can allow multiple instances of the program. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I just shrunk it down a little bit here so that we can actually see more of the nice wallpaper, which, as I mentioned earlier, does just look like something taken right out of Windows Vista, though it does have the aLinux OS logo down here. Going into the applications menu, it does appear that there's a whole lot of stuff bundled in here. We even have this whole aLinux apps category, which has like even some of the same categories that are just here in the main menu. So I'm assuming that all of these are the KDE applications that come just pre-installed with KDE, and then aLinux has added additional stuff in here. Like you see, we've got the GIMP, we've got what else? Anything that stands out to me? Adobe Flash Player, we've got Midnight Commander, we've got Firefox, we have, there's the GNU curl monitors, the aLinux setup wizard, we have GDesk calendar, and Xfree86 apps. Of course, with it making use of KDE, we've got your standard stuff that comes with that, like the Conquer file browser. I gotta say, I do really love the window theme. I mean, it's just fantastic, like how all of this blends together. I do notice this little, like, cyan blue outline going around the entire window, around every window, as you can see. But aside from that, it does look pretty close to what, you know, we would see in Windows Vista. Though we do have this additional box up here, that I believe what this does is it going to pin it to all the desktops? Is that what, yes, that's exactly what it does. Because, yeah, since this OS makes use of multiple desktops, which I feel like I always say this whenever it gets brought up, but Windows took way too freaking long to implement that officially. Yeah, you've got that functionality up here, which is nice. We'll just unpin that. And then you've got the little icon for the application we've got open where you can also get access to, you know, window controls. You can configure Windows behavior. I mean, you guys probably know all this stuff pretty well if you've ever used KDE. Also, one thing that I just noticed is when you hover over these items in the system tray, you get this really nice animation. I'm not sure if this is something that KDE includes in it by default, but it does look fantastic. It doesn't do that effect when you like mouse over the additional items in the system tray, but when you move over it, just to have it come up the first time, that honestly looks really cool. You see we have a icon pack applied. These just look like the standard KDE icons if I'm not mistaken. Firefox does just have a, you know, default browser looking icon, but we can open it up and see what version it is. 17.0.1. Something interesting that I did notice is you can see here that Firefox is using its default icon. If we go into the start menu here under Internet, we do have this separate icon for Firefox, and then we have Conqueror here, and the icon for that is the same as the icon for Firefox in the system tray. And let's take a look at some of the aLinux applications that come bundled with here. So we have one game, GGI Monitest. Monitor test? Is that a game? This is just a monitor test. This isn't a game. I mean, is there like a game in here? Geometry and colors. No, I think it's literally just a screen test. Resolution. Yeah, I mean, we can change the resolution from here, flat panel check. So, yeah, very, very exciting game. I mean, it's definitely a good program to include, but it really should be put under utilities here. Graphics, we of course have the GIMP, a classic that, yes, we are going to make some stupid image here. But hey, even bad human art is better than AI art. So let's just go to new here, and we'll just do, yeah, 640 by 480, that's cool. And what do I usually do? I usually just write out like MJD or something. So I guess we'll keep with that tradition here. So we'll get a cool green going, and we'll write out MJD. There we go. We'll maybe get the bucket tool, do like a black background there, fill in that. That's a masterpiece right there, my friends. I'm pretty satisfied, to be honest. So we're gonna save that. Yeah, we'll save it as untitled on the desktop, because that's a great idea. And we won't bother exporting it. We'll just use the, you know, default image format there. So yeah, we got GIMP. Lovely program, of course. Let's go back in here. We also have the XV Picture Viewer by John Bradley. I have not heard of this. It's probably not going to be able to recognize the GIMP file format. Maybe we should have saved that as a readable format. Untitled.xcf, can it open it? Doesn't look like it. I mean, well, it can open it, but it can't display anything. So let's open this back up. Oh yeah, and by the way, single clicking is what you have to do on the desktop. And also, check that out. We got a preview thing going on. Let me close out of the extra GIMP window there. So yeah, you don't want to double click on things, at least by default. You just single click on things on the desktop to open them up. But yeah, I just noticed that. You can hover over things on the desktop to get like a preview. Again, that might just be a KDE regular thing, but regardless, it is pretty cool. Especially for just being able to quickly preview images like this. So let's just do an export here. Or I guess you just do save as, and then we just choose a different file extension. So we're going to, let's do a PNG. Save that to the desktop. And yeah, we'll just go with that. That's good. So there we go. Let's go back to our viewer here. And we'll have to rescan PNG. And there we go. So yeah, you got a photo viewer, which looks like a pretty old program. I mean, the copyright date there was 1994. Let's open it back up real quick. I didn't really mean to close out of it. Yeah, 1994, last revision, 12/29 of 1994. So I wonder if this might have been a program that was included in Peanut Linux, because like I said, that had been around since at least the early 2000s. The reason I say at least is because the earliest snapshot of the website on the Wayback Machine had version 8.9 as the version that was available for download. So it could have existed prior to that. I didn't find anything on like magazine archives before the early 2000s mentioning Peanut Linux. So yeah, it's certainly a possibility that, you know, this was in there from the very beginning, even if the development of this started in the early 2000s and they just did a lot of work early on. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. So what else we got? We got multimedia. We have it looks like a sound program, a mixer, ALSA mixer, and XMMS multimedia. So this apparently needs root privileges, so we'll authenticate there. This is a terminal program. It opened up in console, as you can see. So we probably can't use the mouse to drag things around, but I assume we could, yeah, use the arrow keys so we can adjust the master volume there. Let's check out this XMMS thing. This is definitely giving me a Winamp vibe. It's XMMS, the X Multimedia System, the sound of the planet. So I've copied over a couple audio files, and let's see if they open up in this program by default. And it doesn't look like it. It opens up a KM player here, which is just KDE's built-in music player. Go ahead and turn the volume down a little bit here. So yeah, I mean, this will obviously play music just fine, but let's see if we can just drag this into here. And I guess that added this. But that's interesting. The title does not show up properly. Must be a character set issue or something. I did look this up. This program is a bit old. It was originally from 1997, but it was last updated in 2007. And that is the version that we have here, 1.2.11. So this program was about 6 years old when this version of aLinux came out. So, you know, certainly not the oldest program, but I am starting to think that a lot of these things in the aLinux apps folder were just carried over from like older versions of Peanut Linux, you know, going back to the early 2000s, because it would make sense for them to have this program back then. We also have, under applications, we've got a development subcategory, and it looks like we have another demo program. Is this the same thing that was up here? No, that was the monitor test. So this is PYGTK demo. Okay, it's a whole code demos program thing. All this text is like really tiny in here. But yeah, so you've got double click for demo on, okay, so these are widgets, I guess. Button box. This demo shows various button box configurations available. So yeah, we just double click and here's a bunch of buttons. You got, you know, different spacing and everything for horizontal and vertical. And we'll close out of that. What else we got? Menu. Here's a menu. Item 0 all the way to item 49. Also, this window is so tiny that the window controls up here go off of the window. So yeah, there's maximize, and then we can close out of it there. So yeah, I mean, this is a useful thing to have. I assume this relates to, well, actually, I don't know. Does it relate to anything else development-wise? Because this is the only thing in this development folder. And then we have Adobe Flash Player. Let's see what version this is. It wants to run Adobe Flash Player properties as root. So this looks to be just the settings window for Adobe Flash Player when it would load in your browser. So you've got camera and microphone settings, playback, advanced storage settings over here. We've got Aptitude, APT for RPM Package Manager. It looks like we have another one down here. Is this two separate package managers? Well, here's both of those. So you've got APT opened up in the console here, and then this is a like graphical front end for it. I mean, we've seen things like this before. Yeah, package management software using APT. And then there was one more thing in this applications folder, the GTK2 demo, which I think is the exact same thing that was in here, wasn't it? Oh, that's PyGTK demo. Well, if you thought the PY was short for Python, you'd be correct. I did look it up. This is a Python thing for GTK, and then this is just GTK. So, yeah, you've got some of the same widgets in here, so we can open up, like, the button boxes again, and here's that. But we'll just close out of that. So, I think that is everything in the applications folder. Next up is Midnight Commander, which I have seen before in my Linspire video, I believe. This was included with that. And yeah, this is a text-based file manager, so it opens up here in the console, and you use the keyboard to go through, and we can view the help information. This is version 4.7.0.2. And yeah, you've got how to move around in it here, it'll tell you. So that is that, pretty self-explanatory. And then we've got internet. We do have Firefox in here, which we already took a look at. And then we have ADSL PPPoE setup. Roaring Penguin software. That's kind of a cool animation there. And it says there are no connections. You must run this program as root to define connections. Yeah, sounds about right. That's something we're not really going to bother with at the moment, since we don't have internet working on this system anyways. Then we've got utilities. We have GNU Krell Monitor, so that is this sidebar program. So, I mean, we can open another instance of that if we want, and have 2 of those running now. We've got aLinux Setup, which looks to be a text-based configuration program. So we got a whole list of things we can do in here. We can mess around with the Lilo bootloader and configure that if we were using it. And then you've got, like, some hardware settings and setting up a password for root and a new user account and all that stuff. We'll just close out of it. And then there was one more thing in here, GDesk Cal Calendar. So here's that, a transparent calendar program that I don't know if we can move around on the desktop. That's rather hilarious. Oh wait, there we go, move. Yeah, there's a, okay, so you have to right click on it, click on move, and then move it around. So yeah, it is a widget, and it looks like, you can see as I move it around here, it's slowly changing the background image of it. So it's not technically transparent, I guess. It's probably doing something like where it's just taking a screenshot of, the desktop like portion of where it's at and then making that its background image. We've seen stuff like this before. Very, very clever way to make all of that work. If that's actually what it's doing, I mean, I could be completely wrong. We can change the skin. We have one other skin here. This one looks a little bit more pronounced, like you can see everything a little bit better. This is a more transparent thing where with the default background, if you have this like over here somewhere, I mean, you can not actually see the days of the week at the top of the calendar. So yeah, you would definitely want to have this like up here where it's a little bit lighter, or down here towards the bottom. You can kind of make things out a little bit better, or just change over to here. That works too. So, and then there's one more category in here. There's X-Free 86 apps. So I guess this is some X Windows system stuff. We've got X console here, which it looks like it couldn't open. That's great. We can do X refresh, which is just going to refresh the entire desktop here. You see that actually looks to have gotten rid of the sidebar over here, probably because it like moved it back. Do we have 2 instances of this running now? Let's see if I can move. No, we just have the one. So that's actually interesting. It like got rid of this one over here and kind of left this outline, or maybe it just screwed it up and it might still be running. Let's see if we run that again. X refresh. Well, it didn't screw up this one, but yeah, we now have this like permanent this like permanent just blob here on the desktop. I guess we can kind of cover it up partially with this other sidebar. So yeah, well, what else can we run in here? Password. That's just going to change the password for my user account, which I don't want to do. And maybe we'll just run one more thing. Xkill, isn't this the program that it just lets you hover over? Yeah, this is really cool, I think. You just use it, you hover over a program, you click, and it kills it. So it's a great way to, kill a process that's not responding without having to like open up like a task manager or console or anything like that. So yeah, that is everything in the aLinux apps folder. I also noticed under Office here, instead of having an Office suite, you just have this Cloud Office Suite Google Drive thing, which is probably just going to be a shortcut to open up Google Drive in Firefox, which yeah, that's exactly what it is. So yeah, overall, a nice selection of software in here. And I mean, I know I've already mentioned it, but I do really like the theme and everything, the whole Frutiger Arrow style that they're going with. Also, if I haven't mentioned it, the sound scheme is pretty nice. You've heard that, you know, as we've gone through and opening up stuff. The only thing I find a little bit annoying is when you open up a window here, it plays sound effects whenever you minimize something, restore a window, maximize a window, and then when you drag a window, you know, to basically restore it out of like full screen here, or, you know, maximized, it plays a sound effect for that too. So they're really big on the sound effects in here. I actually want to go into the settings to see if like we can modify that. So let's go, maybe it's under Utilities, Desktop Settings Wizard. So this is just a KDE thing for making, you know, the operating system transition a little bit easier for you if you're coming from Windows or Mac OS. In fact, as I'm reading this here, this is probably, like, I would want this set on Microsoft Windows because I'm pretty sure mouse selection, you see it changes from single click to double click. That probably takes effect on the desktop. How I mentioned earlier, when you single click on something to open it, that'll probably get changed when we apply this. I didn't actually want to open up GIMP there, but yeah, obviously nothing unique to aLinux or anything, but definitely a nice inclusion for sure. We can lower the effect slider here to make things a little bit faster for us on the system. So yeah, let's actually see what happens if we move it all the way to slower processor. So, oh yeah, that just totally gets rid of like some transparency, and the window contents no longer drag around when you drag windows around on the desktop. It just does the little outline thing. And it looks like we've got different styles as well. I'm going to actually change this back to, let's put it all the way up on fast processor. I think it was here before. Let's just put it up on fast processor and see how this system handles that. Oh, we've got like a nice animation now, a little fade in for the applications menu. That's nice. And so yeah, this is the theme selector. So I actually don't know which one it has selected right now. It just defaulted to this Redmond one, which is, I mean, obviously a style from the northwest of the USA, obviously referring to a particular software company based in Redmond. No idea which one. But yeah, is the default one in here? I actually don't know which one it's set to right now. That's the thing. Let me open up like the system folder here. Oh, and the double click thing just took effect. Yeah, because you see single click doesn't open up. So let's look at like some scroll bars here. We'll shrink this window. I think this KDE default style is the closest to what we have now, but it's definitely not the same. And I don't see one in here that looks exactly like what we have currently applied. So I think if we do this, it will change the entire like theme, and I don't know if we can change it back. I am just going to click on skip wizard for now. Oh, we can't just, I was thinking this was going to skip like this particular thing. So all right, let's just do this one and hit next. And that is going to change everything. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to see if we can find a way to change that back. Okay, well, long story short, it turns out they don't have a theme profile for the default theme. I went into the visual settings to try and like modify all this stuff, and I was able to find a Linspire window style, which did look similar to what we had applied before, but there wasn't a theme, you know, that would just include everything, like the icons and the desktop wallpaper and the colors and everything. So I saw this defaults button, I was like, oh, maybe clicking that will just reset everything back to the way it was before. And then it did this. It got rid of the wallpaper, it set the icons like to black and white, it left the side menu bar, you know, widgets thing over here, but it got rid of the taskbar and the system tray and the applications menu, and there's no, like, there's no way to open up applications, or, you know, to get a list of the applications without just running the command here. Like, there's no just list of applications anymore. So I guess you weren't really supposed to mess around with the visual settings. I think I'm just gonna switch over to the root account, and then I'll just have to make a new user account, you know, for myself. Oh boy, I always manage to screw something up, don't I? Alright, that is a lot better. So yeah, just to show you what I did, if we go into Control Center, so this is just a, you know, regular KDE application, and we go to Appearance and Themes, Theme Manager, and let's click on Defaults, and Apply. And that just totally messes everything up, and then KDE crashes. So yeah, don't do that. Why they did not change the default options to what they are when you install the thing, I have no idea. So yeah, I guess we're gonna have to end things off here, because I'm gonna have to go through and like manually reset all of those settings and see if I can find options, you know, to change everything back to the way that it was, you know, to the default settings that apparently are not the default settings, at least according to the KDE configuration application. Yeah, that would be pretty confusing for somebody, I would imagine. The fact that hitting that button just locks you out of like being able to see the taskbar and the applications menu. So, hey, I guess they were right. I mean, they did warn you in the installer to not use this thing if you didn't know what you were doing. So, yeah, that is aLinux. Certainly a cool-looking distribution. I am curious to hear from anybody out there if you used either aLinux or Peanut Linux back in the 2000s and maybe into the early 2010s a little bit. If you did, be sure to drop a comment down below, and while you're down there, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, get subscribed, maybe consider becoming a patron or a channel member to get early and sponsor-free access to these videos before anybody else. And speaking of, huge thanks again to boot.dev for sponsoring this episode. You can check them out here if you're interested. But either way, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.